the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
Washing my fucking hands.
If you've got a tip for Melissa, a faraway memory that suddenly reappeared, a weird situation you witnessed that fits an open case, how to quarantine yourself without strangling all the family members you're quarantined with, anything, tell us about it by calling the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837, or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. You just might hear your tip on the podcast. And now here's your host, spending her time in quarantine researching true crime and dressing the dog in cute costumes to post on Instagram, Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell. All of that is beyond true, Producer Mark. I can't.
Is it ever?
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe the fashionable costumes our new little dog has been sporting lately.
She has a raincoat and I don't, and it's been pouring rain. So I don't think we've mentioned that we have a new family member. Her name is Siren Marie Morgan Humphreys.
Yes.
And we were going to be talking to the wonderful person who helped us adopt her probably later in the month. It's a wonderful organization. We'll go into the details later. It's called pauseforlifecanine.org. And they train inmates in California state prisons to train dogs. And our girl, Siren, which is hilarious, like a police siren, was trained in Vacaville prison, and she is a Belgian Malinois.
Yes.
Or Malinois if you're me, but a
Pronounce
Belgian
it correctly.
Malinois. Yeah.
I'm never going to let you criticize me for calling a coif again.
Yeah, well, you can, but I like Belgian Malinois. But Belgian Malinois, she's like a small German Shepherd, and she is fantastic and awful and wonderful and evil. And like most beautiful girls, she's a fucking asshole.
She's a handful. She's a handful.
She's a fucking asshole. But
she's not.
But we love her more than air, and she let me put her in a sweater. She hates anything. She hates a collar. She hates a leash. She's just like naked, wanting to run free. But she let me put her in a little sweater with a fur collar.
That was my favorite one. That was,
because
it was kind of cute.
She looks like...
Yeah, she's looking at the camera. Melissa actually got the dog to look at the camera, and the dog's like, What is going on here?
What the fuck is happening? But yeah, she's pretty good little girl. We'll talk about her, later. But we're happy to have another little four-legger running around the house with us two two-leggers, especially in the next coming weeks where Producer Mark will be working from home, which will make him very unhappy because it's not of his own choosing. It isn't, a doctor saying you have to stay home because you have to elevate your foot. He's all better. Everything's great. And then fucking virus ending the world virus. So he's working from home for a couple weeks, and we're going to try not to kill each other. It's going to be beautiful. And we have no fucking toilet paper.
We did it for over we'll get some today. We for over 4 months.
I don't mind shivving a person. I got no problem. This will be day 6 where I am going on a quest for fucking toilet paper. It's what a blessing it is that I am a bit of a paper hoarder, mostly paper towels, because you want to hear something that brought my heart such joy and also scared me a little bit. I walked into my favorite, local coffeeteria, the Bodie Leaf, and my beloved Ethan behind the counter said 3 things you won't compromise on: paper towels, toilet paper, and sheets. And I'm like, how did you know that? Did I tell you this? And he goes, no, I heard it on your podcast. And I'm like, oh, okay.
I was thinking, wow.
I know. I was like, I can't imagine ordering my beloved mocha frap with only 2 pumps of mocha and oat milk, and then having some reason to say to Ethan, life's too short to have literally shitty toilet paper that hurts your butthole. You want Northern quilted plush. I'm not compromising. I'm not using particle board to wipe my ass. Paper towels. Why would I use 15 sparkles when I can use one motherfucking Viva that's like the the thickness of a goddamn, hotel bath towel.
God, we should be getting paid for this.
I know we should, but I have, very strong opinions. And why would I sleep on sheets that roll up into pill balls and hurt my skin? You spend a third of your life in bed. And producer Mark knows this. It's sheets.
Let me tell you something. To all the single men out there, this is why you marry, because every single man out there is sleeping on those pilled up sheets that has been on the bed for 3 or 4 months. That why change it? Yeah.
We just used to squeegee yours off or crack them in half and then throw them away. Yeah. All the single men. All the single men.
Yeah.
All the single men.
Here's the thing.
Instead of putting a ring on it, put some fucking sheets on it.
Oh my God! Until I met Melissa, until we actually started buying really nice sheets, I had no idea. But now it's like going to bed is like, oh, I'm going to sleep now.
Yeah, it's like you're lying. You get into the arms of a warm pat of butter.
There's nothing like it. It's worth the investment. Save up for instead of going out and buying just to stay on the rolled up, bad, curled up, pilled up sheets for another couple months. Instead of going out and buying a new set of those now, save up for 2 more months and then go buy the good stuff.
It sounds like you're it's they used to say the price of an engagement ring is 2 months' salary.
Right.
So now it's the price of a really nice pair of sheets, a set of sheets is a 2 month salary. So we have, secrets. We haunt outlet malls, and I used to only buy Restoration Hardware sheets at the outlet mall because it's like $500 to $1,000 a set of sheets if you bought them at the regular store, which that's not even, it's not in most people's realm, and I wouldn't do it if I had that. So getting them, for $100, $150 tops for a king size bed with an extra set of pillowcases, that sounds like a lot of money, and yet you'll keep them for years, and your body will thank you.
Yeah, it will. It really will.
Yeah, so it's worth that.
And next month we'll talk about the bedding, the mattress, the mattress top,
and the Pacific Feather Company. Yeah, we'll do. None of these people are sponsors, by the way. I just want you to know that. If Northern Quilted Plush ever wants to sponsor us, I would be deliriously happy. And I have zero idea why anyone, or Viva Paper Towels, I have zero idea why anyone needs to stockpile toilet paper during a virus pandemic, but God bless you fucking fuckfaces.
It just tells you where people's minds
I don't get no it doesn't. Why not like cheese and bread or peanut butter?
Because everybody's thinking I gotta shit and I gotta wipe my ass, and I can't imagine life without being able to wipe my ass.
It is interesting the priorities that one sets during a self-quarantine virus thing that none of us have.
I was at the store the other day, because we actually are running out of toilet paper. That we actually have that issue. So I just wanted to get like four rolls of toilet paper,
right.
And you couldn't. I mean, they were all sold out. No. And I walked by places like the butcher, right, the where the meat was, fully stocked. Nobody at the butcher counter. Nobody getting anything.
Maybe they're afraid their freezers are going to explode.
I mean, it's like it's crazy.
Well, it's different. I think it's different geography. Different. Our friend Dan said that he was at a Trader Joe's in the San Gabriel Valley, and there were a couple with 3 carts, and the husband would guard the carts while the wife took 30 cartons of a dozen eggs. As quick as they could stock them, she would put them in her cart, and her husband would guard the cart, and then she wiped out like most of just started throwing bags of frozen foods, like Szechuan beef and orange chicken.
That's insanity.
Yeah,
that is true panic.
So I will tell you the experience I had that was lovely. I went to Sam's Club just trying to get some goddamn toilet paper and some Gatorade. We put Gatorade on the porch for delivery people because it can be hot here and it's a nice thing to offer them something. No Gatorade, no paper products, of course. That was just stupid of me. So I'm pulling things off because I think, Mark's going to be working from home and we're going to need some shit. Like peanut butter and soup and stuff like that. And a very sweet man from Sam's Club saw me holding my Sam's Plus executive card and comes over and he goes, you have the Sam's Plus card? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, we get trucks every night. And I'm like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah, if you're here tomorrow, you can get in at 7 a.m. and you can get some toilet paper.
It's like,
I'm like, it's the French Resistance. I'm like, exactly. The only thing missing was if I were wearing a beret and had a shitty clove cigarette hanging off my lip, like, I will be here tomorrow at 7 a.m. with my Sam's Plus card.
A little beard.
Thank you. Yeah, wearing a turtleneck.
Little goatee. Little goatee.
Thanks, producer Mark.
Like you get your little fake goatee you could wear with the...
It's a soul patch.
Oh, that's right.
A little soul patch underneath my chin. Thank you so much for thinking I'm a fur face.
No, you're not. I said get a fake one.
Yeah, anyway, it was just so funny. He's like, if you're here at 7 a.m., you can get toilet paper.
Oh my God!
I know. I was like,
That's hilarious.
La 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 la. It was really a weird experience. So, I hope everyone out there is listening to this podcast to take their mind off of everything I've just brought up to you. So I apologize for that. But one of the things that's helping me get through are podcasts. I am discovering ones that I really enjoy, things I wasn't sure I would, and I'm having a good time, and I hope that, if you know someone who needs a distraction from trying to find toilet paper, you'll tell them about us here at Just the Tip-Sters. You can call us at 832-847-7837 if you have a story idea, a case you want us to cover. You can email us at jttipsters@gmail.com, and we would love if you would go to Apple Podcasts and rate or review the podcast, especially if you like it. If you don't, just forget I said anything, because I've had just about enough of that shit recently. And we'd love it if you subscribe to the podcast.
Well, it is a sign of getting more popular when the trolls show up.
Yeah, I had a man call me a C word, which was nice. I haven't been called a cunt since I managed a comedy club in Cincinnati, and a man didn't want to pay tax on his bar tab.
What?
Yeah, he was, I'm guessing he had some cocktails, and I was managing Go Bananas in Cincinnati. And it also, I hate to say this, but the headliner was an asshole and brought in asshole, fans. Yeah, fans. Right. And this man was in a really attractive flannel shirt, and he had a large party. It was a table of 8, and we didn't even charge like a 20% gratuity, which a lot of places do if you have yeah. We didn't even do that. He promised he would tip the server, which I think he did. But he was like, I need to speak to the manager. And Tom, I still remember, Tom was the waiter, and he, brings me over. And this man was like, why am I paying tax on this? The bill's already high enough. And I'm like, well, sir, we don't really have a choice. It's a state law. We have to charge you tax on the food and the drink. And he's like, I'm not paying it, you cunt.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, okay. And I just walked away, and Tom already had his credit card. So
too bad.
This guy.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, apparently you are. And I'm not going to fight you for it. So I'm not fighting you for taxes. So yeah, it was really nice that a woman sicked her husband on me and called me a cunt.
Maybe it's the same guy.
No, this guy's younger, but yeah, it's like, there's so many other important things in the world. Why would you attack a person who hosts the podcast? My favorite part is that it was a case that I basically read directly from governmental pages. So there was nothing
from sworn testimony.
Under oath. I couldn't have gotten the information wrong because it was under oath. And I guess he didn't like, or his wife, it started with his wife who said, you're making up stuff to get more listeners. And I'm like, sweetheart, if I were doing that, I'd have a lot more listeners. I'm not good at making up shit. I'm a terrible liar, and I have no reason to lie about someone's life or death.
Didn't you invite her to go and get
I did.
A copy of the sworn testimony? I said,
you live in the area. You could go get it. It's at your library. You could get it at the library. And maybe that's what threw her off the library. She's not familiar with. Anyway. So let's, if you could give us a lovely review, we'd be really grateful. So it's contest time again, and producer Mark doesn't even know about this.
I didn't know.
I just love to surprise you. So you have until Friday, April 10th to get your submissions, and that's Good Friday. You have until midnight on Good Friday, April 10th to send in case ideas. And it's not going to be judged on what the case is. It's going to be a random blind drawing. And like last year, where Tipster Deneen won the lovely stainless tumbler made by our lovely friend Shelly from Southern Girl Creations. She's doing another 20-ounce stainless steel Just the Tip-Sters tumbler. It will have the Just the Tip-Sters logo, and it will have, she's working on getting, on the opposite side, crime scene tape. And
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, if you have seen any of Shelly's beautiful work on she has Instagram, Facebook, and her own website. It's Southern Girl Creations. I think is it .net, sweetheart? I always
will
forget.
get that.
Yeah, I forget. We will get it. Yeah, but this time you get the beautiful Just the Tipster stainless steel tumbler with a straw and a great. The lid has the little slide, like a little sippy slide. You also get a $25 Ulta gift card. So if it's a dude, it would be a great present to give to your chick. Or you can go buy
wow,
all the soap that you need to wash your hands 875 times a fucking day.
We're giving a lot of shit away here.
We are. We're really kind. But you have to send in to either the email address at jttipsters@gmail.com or at the phone number, our lovely hotline at 832-847-7837. So yeah, call us and give us your name and your story or case idea. And if you are the winner and you don't leave us an email address or something, we'll find you and haunt you. That's why it's probably better to email it. But
by the way, Shelly's website is Southern Girl Creations, all one string, .net.
.net. That's what I thought. Yeah. And she does such amazing work. It's so beautiful and classy and interesting and different. And you can get anything, made to your desire. So that's why she's doing us a beautiful stainless steel tumbler, another one with the logo on it for the giveaway in April. And we will give it away the following week. So you have until Friday, April 10th. Send in your case ideas. We have some great ones on the back burner, but we thought it was time to give away again. So this was submitted to us by a beautiful tipster Amelie, and I've been working on this for 2 months, and I'm a little afraid because I've been working on frayed around the edges. I've been working on other things in the meantime, and it's just it's a wonderful distraction during a time of a ridiculous pandemic, and this case is fascinating and terrible. I just hate the ones that aren't solved. And when Amelie expressed the closeness that she has to the case, it made me even a little more sad. And she even had some other classmates reach out to me and explain how they felt about Mr. Arthur. And I call him Mr. Arthur because I have a issue. I'm always going to call someone who's a teacher or in that position Mr. But his name was Harold Arthur. He went by Hal Arthur. And he was really a beloved teacher at Grant High School in Van Nuys, California, a suburb here in Los Angeles. And he had worked there for 20 years, and he had been a teacher for even longer than that. He was 60 when he was murdered, and he would have been 61 just a few weeks after that. And he was such a special guy. I mean, covering the Joe Bryan case and hearing about, Mickey and Joe Bryan being these teachers and principals who gave so much, to their students. They're sometimes your career doesn't define you, or you don't, resonate with it that much. You do it maybe as a source of money or, because you're good at it, but you have all of these other interests in your life. And Joe and Mickey Bryan were teachers and principals who that was their life. On their summer break, they spent time figuring out what to do starting the next fall and trying to reach kids who were not easily reached. And Hal Arthur is that guy too. He taught history and social studies. He was a student advisor. I mean, he was very involved. He organized trips for students to Israel so basically they could discover the Holy Land. He didn't put parameters on them, but it was, he had sort of a part-time business out of his home. He had a home office where he organized these trips to Europe. And I mean, if kids didn't have the money, he would come up with ways to earn the money, to find the money, to help them on these trips. I mean, he was a really stellar a stellar human being, and something that one of his students, who is now, I believe, in law enforcement in Northern California, what he says about him is simple and plain and concise and beautiful. So let's go back to March 24th of 1989. It's 6 a.m., and Hal Arthur is doing what he always does. He's leaving for work to teach at Grant High School. And he has a stack of papers that he puts in the backseat of his car. And he gets out of the backseat and he walks to the front of the car, but he doesn't quite make it there because someone is lying in wait, and 6 shots ring out, and he is shot 4 times in the back with what sounds like a very fast semi-automatic weapon, according to witnesses, a neighbor, also named Hal, which is very interesting. His wife, Virginia, and his son run out of the house, and he is lying there, and he's already gone. And they see a gray or dark, maybe black sedan driving quickly off. Now, at first, that is thought to be either the suspect or a witness who may have been frightened by the gunfire. We're going to examine both of these theories. It's still really ugly that this case has not been solved. Here we are 31 years later, and it has not been solved. So Mr. Arthur doesn't survive, and the police seem to kick into gear really quickly when it's something like a teacher. I think that's a beautiful thing. You know, every time you hear about an officer-involved shooting, if an officer has been hurt, you know, police come out in droves to help their own. And it seems like in this case, there were 5 detectives assigned to Mr. Arthur's case. 5. And the suspect, one of the main suspects, and the LA Times journalists who cover his case are as interesting as anything else in this case. So I'm reading, you know, old LA Times articles, and I'm like, this is written beautifully. And I look up, and the byline is Michael Conley. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you should explain who he is.
I'm going to. Michael Conley, if you're unfamiliar, which would be difficult, I think, at this time in your life, in the world, is known most recently for Bosch. And it is an exceptional series. Is it Amazon or Netflix? Do you remember?
It's on Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime. It's an incredible series, so beautifully written. And producer Mark and I are blessed to be friends with one of the location managers, Tip-Ster Kimberly, and her fiance, Tip-Ster Alex. And we got to go on the set of Bosch in November of 2017, maybe 2018.
It was 2018, I think.
2018, yeah. And Titus Welliver is just the salt of the earth. He's amazeballs. But we happened to be there. It was the final night of shooting, season...
I think it was season 4.
Yeah. And Michael Conley was there. And he was standing next to us watching. It was so weird. I mean, it's so surreal to be on the set, and then here's the guy who wrote all this.
Who created the books, the original books. You know, my boss at work is a huge fan of the books. Yeah. She had no idea about the TV series. I told her about the TV series. Yeah.
Well, apparently, you know, she's not alone. And he has a pedigree of fan that is pretty amazing. One of my favorite stories is that Harry Bosch kind of became an even more popular character that Michael Conley developed when in 1994, you know, Bill Clinton comes out of a bookstore carrying a copy of The Concrete Blonde, and he's holding it up so you could see it in the cameras. And he's such a fan that he actually, while he had landed in Los Angeles for something other than getting his hair cut on the tarmac, he set up a meeting with Michael Conley at the airport. So, I mean, that's kind of an interesting thing when the president summons you to the airport because he loves your writing. I mean, you may be familiar. He wrote The Lincoln Lawyer that Matthew McConaughey starred in. I mean, he's an amazing writer, but he was, you know, a journalist in Florida where he was from, and then came to Los Angeles and was a crime reporter for the LA Times.
I had no idea.
I didn't either.
And the thing is, I read that report when it came out. I read that story in the Los Angeles Times when this whole thing happened.
He covered it for a very long time, and he did, I mean, Michael Conley is just, I got to say, I love him a little bit even more. An amazing fiction writer, but he is a fantastic crime reporter too. So he was on the staff. He wrote a couple of things in tandem with other writers. There's a Sam Enrique that was also a Times staff writer. So they wrote a couple of things together about Mr. Arthur's case. But it's just so, he's this beloved teacher, the senior class advisor. He's well loved. He's not, he wasn't known as the tough love guy. He wasn't known as the asshole. He wasn't known as, everyone's best friend. He was just a guy who was good with kids and wanted them to travel and see their history. And the sweetest thing that Tipster Amelie's friend, his name is Lance, and he lives in Northern California now, and he said, my fondest memory of Mr. Arthur was seeing him the morning of Senior Ditch Day. And he had known that, we were sleeping on the stage, the outdoor stage at the high school, and that he had to know we were all hungover. We smelled like alcohol, and he never mentioned a thing. And he handed out coffee cake and chocolate milk and orange juice. And it was
that's awesome.
Warmed up coffee cake. He lived close to the school, so he probably warmed it up at home and brought it back to the school and said, look, just make sure you get your drunk asses off campus before all the other students get in. And here's the thing he said that just lets you know who Mr. Arthur was. I remember him being very kind and gentle and a beautiful soul, and he understood teenagers, which is a really big thing to say even today. So this is the guy. This is the guy who, most people love. I mean, I guess there were a few students, including the main suspect, who had a grudge against him. But the main suspect, who the police have ruled out, and yet I really have not, turned out to be a horrible human being. A horrible human being that, did some time. I don't know if he's still in prison, but, he was 16 at the time. And just, anyway. So Mr. Arthur does not survive what happened to him. And there are 5 detectives, and there are 150 interviews, and this was pretty interesting to me. Within a week, there were 6 people who had been polygraphed. 6 people.
That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost one a day.
Yeah. So I guess the reason the assailant, executionist, shot him 4 times, 6 shots 4 times, is that it was a .22 caliber semi-automatic, and he was across the street from the way it looks. They're trying to there's still, I think, a debate whether he was outside the car and standing or whether he shot from the car across the street and then drove off. So, but either way, he was lying in wait and got Mr. Arthur 4 times in the back. Now, I will tell you that some of the theories are a disgruntled student, the Israeli mafia.
The Israeli mafia?
The Israeli mafia.
Okay.
The Israeli army, Mossad, the secret agency for the Israel. I mean, I don't know how or why. I don't know. But it does seem that, again, a person who does not live in what most of us would think a compromised life, why this would happen to him. Why a teacher who, travel to Israel, okay. Taking your students of, the Jewish faith to the Holy Land. I don't know why you would need to end the life of that person. The man who, if they can't afford it or couldn't find ways to do it, would help them do it. Doesn't seem like a guy you would want to shoot in the back 4 times. There were rumors that he had somehow, because of his travel business, had been involved in some sort of smuggling. None of that was ever played out. None of that was ever found to be true. This is a man, when he had a travel business, it meant he probably started a ghost company to help kids get to the Holy Land. He wasn't booking trips for all kinds of people to go to Europe. He was booking trips and tours that he would lead for students to discover the Holy Land. I mean, he didn't even, like I said, it wasn't even forced like we're going to the Holy Land and you're going to kiss a wall or, it was, I would like
for educational
I would like you to,
purposes.
yes,
Yeah.
I would like you to discover your heritage.
So he created his own like little travel agency to
Yes.
do this?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Out of his garage.
No kidding.
Yeah, out of his lovely home in the 13,000 block of Millbank in Sherman Oaks. He had a travel business in his garage that was basically to help students get to discover their heritage, not to smuggle guns or drugs or the things that the suspect did. So 16-year-old Hai Waknin is troubled, and he is transferred to several... He's entitled, is what he is. He's a 16-year-old kid from a well-to-do family who drives a BMW, a 16-year-old kid who drives a BMW to Grant High School. He had been transferred to Grant after he had trouble at North Hollywood High. He, wore a lot of gold jewelry, was known as the guy you could get your drugs from, and had a grudge against Mr. Arthur, although no one knows really what it was. I do have to say, at that age, your brain's still developing. When I was trying to find information on, because there was rumors that a previous teacher had been shot in 1976, and that might be true. I don't believe it was related to Mr. Arthur, because that person rode off on a bicycle after shooting a teacher also who worked at Grant High in 1976. I believe that was a student who was a disgruntled student. And maybe, the Israeli mafia uses bicycles. I don't know. I mean, it's a really good cover.
Yeah.
It's a good cover, but driving off in a, gray or black sedan, a newer sedan, probably more along the lines of what they would do, whether they were standing outside the car or in the car. I'm not saying it was Mossad. I'm just saying that they probably don't use, or the Israeli mafia. I think they probably don't use bicycles, but who knows, right? So I'm looking, and I find in 1974, here not far from us, about 30 miles north in Palmdale, sort of the edge of LA County, a 13-year-old student shot his teacher in the thigh with a .22 because she assigned homework. So, I get it. I mean, you're 13, you don't like homework. I don't like homework either. I never took guns to school, didn't have any guns. But so, yeah, he shoots his teacher in the thigh. She survives, but I couldn't find any information on the 1976 shooting of another teacher at Grant High. I don't know that maybe he didn't die. Maybe because his assailant rode off on a bike. I don't know. But Mr. Arthur, another thing that was heartbreaking and beautiful is that his wife, Virginia, said, I have nothing but the highest regard for the Van Nuys Police Department and how they're handling this, because that's not something you hear often. That is absolutely not something you hear often, is that.
Yeah.
And here we are, the case is still unsolved. And all these years later, Virginia said, I can't say enough good things about the Van Nuys Police Division. That was what she said in April. That's like a month
LAPD,
after, yeah, of 1989. A month later, even though they're still working diligently, they have all these, as was said by LA Lieutenant Dennis Dunn in April of 1989. There's a lot of directions to look at. Yeah, he's a teacher. It could be a disgruntled student. It could be somebody who doesn't like his travel business. I mean, I don't know. I don't. So several students give the police Hai Waknin's name. They're like, he has access to weapons. He has, a grudge against Mr. Arthur. He had gone to Mr. Arthur's memorial. He's, 16 at the time. He is questioned for 6 hours. And he is the kind of guy that files a lawsuit against the police and says that they didn't have proper cause or evidence to question him. He filed a lawsuit 5 days after Mr. Arthur's death in the U.S. District Court.
This kid did.
Yep.
So it must have been filed by his parents on his behalf.
Maybe.
For being questioned, not for wrongful arrest, or
yeah, they have. It said, the lawsuit said that they didn't have proper cause or evidence when they took him in to question him. Proper cause, I don't know, because there was 15 students who pointed to him, and granted, what you have here are teenage kids with a lot of, high emotion and a teacher who's beloved by most of them. So you gotta question everyone, right?
Of course. I mean, that's ridiculous. I assume that the suit was thrown out.
I don't know, but I'm guessing I don't think it could have gone through because they absolutely had proper cause.
Of course they did.
It seems like that he comes from a very, a family that gives them too much funding. Like he and his brother both end up in prison. His brother Asaf and he both end up in prison. His brother's in Mexico.
Yeah, so they're a couple of privileged little
but
assholes.
He gets to be much, much worse as an adult. I don't know that it was this incident that pushed him to drop out of school, because I think he was going to lead a really crappy life no matter what. But, so he's this, but by all accounts, he's like a 16-year-old pudgy, upper middle class kid. He had been born in Israel. He, wore a lot of jewelry, drove a BMW. Now, here's something I thought was interesting, is that, one of the students that pointed at him after Mr. Arthur's murder said he took karate lessons from a instructor that taught him how to shoot guns and kill people. Now, when you're 16, I don't think you need to know how to kill people. I'm wondering if the karate lessons were like Krav Maga, which is, like a Israeli self-defense. But, maybe they're making it, a little bit more histrionic than it is. But, at the time, the detective said he has been ruled out. There's no evidence to connect this kid to this case. But this kid doesn't stay a kid for long. He drops out of high school. He and his brother Asaf are, wheeler dealers, is what even his brother describes them. He'll buy 5 cars here. He'll sell 5 cars there. He, brokers these arrangements between, real estate investors and wealthy uncles, and starts like a jewelry business on Hill Street, right across from Pershing Square in downtown LA, right where a lot of Harry Bosch interesting stories are written. He rents, offices and opens a global parcel service, but he uses the global parcel service to be one of the United States' biggest importers of the drug ecstasy.
Uh-huh. Yeah, all that stuff. Every single business you just mentioned are perfect businesses for fronts.
Right. So he, opens a Vegas-based transport company, and he
Listen to that. Let's just parse those words. Vegas-based transport company.
But wait, let me finish. They transport cocaine from California to the East Coast for Pablo Escobar.
Oh my.
He's part of Pablo Escobar's Colombian cartel as a teenager with his transport company from Las Vegas. So he, stops, he gets coke, I guess, in California, stops at his transport company in Vegas, and then gets it all the way to the East Coast.
Parcel Post.
Mm-hmm. Global Parcel Post. Isn't that a great name for his company?
I don't know what it was
Global Parcel Post.
Yeah, I don't know, whatever it was called, but it's
So
unbelievable.
He finally,
while he was a teenager, I just want to make sure.
He's a teenager. He's still a teenager at the time. In his 20s, though, he is finally brought down by a DEA special agent because one of his single transactions was $11 million.
Oh, is that all?
$11 million, and he was laundering it when the DEA cracks down on him. He is the biggest importer of the MDMA drug. It's ecstasy. He actually even, this is so sad, he actually even used his mother's clothing company, and anyone who was alive in the 90s will know what I'm talking about. Her clothing company, Silhouette Paris, which was in Studio City, and he would import ecstasy in the shoulder pads of his mother's apparel.
Brilliant.
Shoulder pads.
They were big back then,
They
kids.
were big in the 90s.
They were very big
They
back
were very
then.
big. And you could make ecstasy, you boil it down into the size of like a baby aspirin. They were very small. You could make them in very small pills. And they're like, really cheap to make. And then you sell them for like $25 a piece or something. So he was, he was a big spender. He would, spend like 10 grand on one hand in Vegas. He was turning into a real big gangster. At one point, he was in a club in Vegas and a Japanese guy flipped him off. And I don't know what he said to the Japanese guy, but he charged him a $25,000 fine for flipping him off. And the guy paid because he was afraid of the consequences.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so he did turn into a very bad man.
A bad man. And I mean, in 2000, so he's now closing in on 30s, he's in his late 20s. In 2000, there's an insurance agent in the San Fernando Valley named Jimmy Altman. And he was dating a woman, and her former husband didn't like that. I don't know what pull the former husband had with Hai Waknin, but he gets Jimmy Altman to meet him at a restaurant. He's like, hey, you know what? We're going to have a little meeting here at this restaurant. It's a Israeli hangout on Ventura Boulevard. It's where Hai Waknin was always holding court. So this poor insurance broker, Jimmy Altman, is like, okay, I'll meet you there, I guess. And they meet, and he says, I need you to stay away from Tammy. And he's like, are you kidding? And he's like, no, you can't date Tammy anymore. And the guy ends up breaking up with Tammy, I think out of fear. And he said, still, it didn't matter that he broke up with her. A few days later, 2 bullets come through the front window of his house.
Okay. So he is affiliated with organized crime of some sort. He has to be.
At this point, he is. Now, this is kind of a bummer. Jimmy Altman, the insurance agent in Tarzana, ends up filing a police report, but then he stops cooperating with detectives. And do you know what they find out?
Can't wait.
Hai Waknin took out $1 million policy with Jimmy Altman's insurance agency. So, take out an insurance policy with an Israeli mafia person, and then he won't kill you. I don't know how these things work, but yeah, I have to tell you, when they finally bring him into court in 2004, this judge is the kind of judge, he's Doug Sortino, except he's Hispanic.
And probably a federal judge, I'm guessing.
A U.S. district judge, you're right. So Manuel Real, he is kind of amazing. So in June of 2004, he is brought into court, and he has a litany of charges against him. They have been wiretapping him, where he has, threatened to kill people. They have, informants. The DEA is on him. It's all, all of this trafficking. He's not a good guy, right? And this judge is terrific, really terrific. So Hai Waknin finally admits to 1 count of racketeering. He pleads guilty to 1 count of racketeering. Even the prosecutors are like, what? They couldn't even believe that he admitted to it, but he did. But he had a plan. So they send him home to await sentencing. And the detectives are like, don't do this. Don't do this. He's going to be Peter Chadwick. He's going to run. He's going to run. So the U.S. Marshals haul him into court in manacles because there was an informant that said, look, his brother Asaf is already in Mexico. He just got out of prison. He's going to flee and they're both going to be in the wind, and you're going to be screwed. And so they haul him in, and Judge Real says, you know what? He'll be protected in custody here. At least he'll live that long.
That's funny.
Yeah, this judge is hilarious.
Well, he's a very well-known figure.
Oh, Manny Real?
Absolutely.
Oh, I didn't know. I feel stupid.
He was finally removed late in his career. He served for like 50 years.
Oh,
and
wow.
He
don't say because he was crooked or something.
Well, there was some hint of it that he was ruling. I think.
Well,
you'll have to look him up. He was ruling in favor of people involved with companies in which he had invested, but it didn't have anything to do with this case.
Okay. I was going to say, I thought you were going to say something different. Now that sort of bums me out, because what he did was I thought was pretty spectacular.
Oh, no, he was known as a hard ass. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, yeah. So he doesn't even look up from the paperwork during Joaquin's sentencing. And he sends him to 10 years in prison, which is a year more than the prosecutors were asking. And so they take him down to the detention center, and his attorneys are like, we're filing an intent to appeal for that extra year. And Judge Real's like, I don't care. And so the prosecutors recommended, he's back in court in December of that year for a restitution hearing. And prosecutors recommended that he pay $406,000 back to his victims. And the judge is like, oh, hold on a minute. And he does some calculating, and he goes, yeah, no, it's $646,000. And the attorneys are like, but and he goes, the government doesn't make the orders, I do. So I guess you're right. Maybe Judge Real is a bit of a hard ass.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he was known as, if I'm remembering correctly, Manny Real was famous for that.
I think you're right, but I just thought he was hilarious because he gives him a year more than the prosecutors asked for. But he also said, you have been a thorn in the side of LA law enforcement for years. And he's right. So Joaquin, who was 16 at the time, was sort of the main suspect, even though the police ruled him out. I'm going to say, if he wasn't the person who did it, maybe he knows someone who did. I don't know.
So this is a kid. At the time, he was a kid. And we already know he's a bad seed, okay? And his parents were obviously not nice people either. Right. I would love to know more about his dad or his mom. And it could very well be that he hated this teacher. And who knows, maybe his dad did something and had connections to do something. It might be something like that. It could, but I can't believe he is not somehow involved.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I hate to say that. I mean, I don't have any proof. All I have is a preponderance of speculation that, I mean, there's just not that many people that would have had a reason. The police even ran down for a very long time the theory that it was mistaken identity.
Well, I get, okay.
But there was just nothing that came, nothing from his travel business, nothing from his teaching. Everyone loved him. He was a very beloved teacher who, as, Tipster Lance said, was great with kids, great with teenagers, which is a really big thing to say. I mean, understood them, didn't judge them, may not have said, hey, it's great that you go get drunk, but hey, you're drunk, here's some coffee cake and fucking sober up and get off campus. I mean,
right.
He was that guy, and he was, going to be 61, and he was a father and a husband, and he just really seemed, he would get up early and get to school early because he loved what he did. One of those people that's like, if you're 5 minutes early, you're still too late. He's that guy who would get there early. And so I do want you to know that I tried really hard to get, any sort of public records request or FOIA request acknowledged. And I have to say, I pulled in as many favors as I could because I really wanted to cover this for Tipster Amelie the best that I could. And no one really in my little law enforcement field could help me. And the LAPD, I have to say, even if they tell you to go fuck yourself, they do it quickly. It only took 24 hours for my, records request to be shot down. And what they said was, babble, but in accordance with California Government Code, section blah, 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 records of investigations or investigatory files compiled by this police agency are exempt from disclosure. So I get it. These records may, they said we could submit a subpoena, which of course I'm not going to do.
Right.
Because it's still an open case and they must.
That was my question. So it's still technically open.
It is still an open case. Grant High, besides the weird stuff that Michael Connelly covered this case so beautifully in the LA Times, besides the fact that Hai Wak Nin is a strange kid with, that everyone pointed to, an even weirder thing, and this is just strange, and I don't know the outcome of this because it may not have happened, but in May of 2019, Grant High gets a large infusion of money for a facilities upgrade over the next, several years. So this was not even quite a year ago yet. And they were going to uproot a bunch of mature trees to change the design and, new buzzers and bulletproof windows and things like that. But one of the things that was sort of heartbreaking is that the senior lawn that was between the admin building and the library, it was dedicated to Hal Arthur, and that would have been removed too. And that wasn't discussed at this, city meeting about the planning. So I don't know if the lawn that was dedicated, the memorial senior lawn to Mr. Arthur, is still up or has been taken, down. I think these things take a while,
They do, and I hope that if they do remove it, that they'll name something else after him.
Yeah, a smaller memorial of some, of some kind, something, because he was obviously, if students from the 80s are contacting me saying, here's what I remember. He was such a good guy. I remember what he did for us. Such a sweet, gentle soul. I mean, those are not the words you say about teachers that you don't really mean. And it wasn't just one person. It's hundreds of students, maybe thousands of students felt this way over his long career. So why would he end up shot in the back 4 times, assassinated? Just let's say what it was, assassinated. With something as fascinating as this unsolved case of this beloved teacher, his case being covered by a crime journalist who turns in to be a fantastic detective novelist, Michael Connelly, a suspect who is so deeply involved and deeply rooted into the worst parts of society. His memorial garden maybe not surviving an upgrade to the school where he taught all those years. I can't help but think somebody knows something. And I know that LAPD detectives are completely flummoxed at this point. And one of my favorite quotes is from J.K. Chesterton, who wrote, "The criminal is the creative artist, the detective only the critic." So the creative artist criminal who did this terrible thing has gotten away with it for way too long. And the detectives are really good critics and need to find out who this awful person or persons were. And if you happen to know anything, there is a completely anonymous tip line for the LAPD, and I know they would be beyond grateful for any help with this case. If you have any idea, a remembrance, if you were a student, if anything strikes you that could be a piece of information you think may not even be important, it may be very important. And we urge you to call 1-877-527-3247 completely anonymously, and more cowbell.
If you would like to support the podcast, go to patreon.com/justthetipsters.